Ambassador, thank you very much for talking to Diplomatic Connections. I want to start off with a few questions about the current state of the Greek economy. 2 years ago, Greece was on the verge of bankruptcy, and there was talk of Greece leaving the euro. But in April of this year, the market eagerly bought up $3 billion in bonds at a much lower rate, I think, than Athens itself had actually anticipated. The cost of government borrowing has dropped, I think, from 36% to 8%. The prospect of a default has receded, and quitting the euro is no longer considered a realistic threat. So, what happened within this period that has brightened the picture so significantly?
First of all, I'd like to welcome you to the Embassy of Greece.
Thank you.
And I'm very happy because we start our discussion with the economy, which is right now, as we speak, the number one priority back in my country. We have all these good results you mentioned, and even more encouraging news coming from Greece, but also from our economic partners all around the world, mainly our European partners, but also, you know, there's a great interest for the Greek economy here in the United States. That was expressed through President Obama when he met my Prime Minister, and Vice President Biden. All the top U.S. officials, they expressed serious interest about the development of the economic situation in Greece. All these positive things, they have been done mainly because of the huge sacrifice of the Greek people. And believe me, the social cost is great. Social programs that have been sliced, incomes, pensions, they have been cut. There was, generally speaking, an internal devaluation of the economy, which we took willingly, but with great social cost and political cost, to the extent of 25%. That's within 3 years. You can imagine in an open democratic society, this is a very heavy blow. But
So the economy, lost 25% of its value,
yes,
in the course of 3 years.
That means we are at again 25% of our competitiveness. That's that we lost in the past, and we are much more competitive right now because the internal labor cost is lower right now as we speak. But we have the sense that we have good news, the prospect is great, but that doesn't mean that we're going to stop our effort, because right now we should stress all our efforts and continue this positive momentum. We do expect, first of all, let me say that tourism is a great
Yes,
in
very
the
good,
economy,
enormous value.
and we're at the very beginning of the
I
new
remember
tourist year.
your Prime Minister actually called it
A heavy industry.
He called it a rain of liquidity in a dehydrated soil.
This is a very poetic expression,
Yeah.
but it reflects the reality, because we need, fresh money to get into the economy to start again moving. And
We
lots
had
of
19 million tourists last year.
we have close to 18 million tourists.
Right.
From all indications, the tourist season starts right now. We are pretty confident that we're going to overcome the record-breaking last year's good results. We're going to have even more visitors, especially from the United States. There's a great demand, and we're very hopeful we're going to receive much more friends from the United States.
What was it that created this situation in the first place? Or let's say, what went wrong in Greece that produced the situation?
There are a lot of factors altogether. To be sure, we have done lots of mistakes, but we're not alone. I have to remind you that before the crisis, the Greek economy had a sustainable 3 to 4% growth, which for a developed economy, it's quite remarkable. But when the crisis came, and it was important to my country, I have to remind our listeners this, that the infrastructure was quite weak. And also, we belong to the Eurogroup, which means that people and the economy as a whole was able to borrow money easier. At some point, there was a difficulty to repay all this money back. And the immediate result is the Greek economy to be cut off of the open markets. Then you needed money to finance your immediate needs. And then the lenders, they had what we call a troika, which consisted mainly by the European Bank, the European Commission, and the IMF. And these people say, okay, we're going to borrow, to lend you money, but we have to see how you're going to restructure your economy, so we're going to get our money back. And then they start intervening here and there, where you spend this, where you don't cut this, and all this. This is a very painful procedure, I would say. It's not easy, and the Greek people suffer great sacrifices. But we reform our economy. Mainly, they told us that the public sector was overgrown in the past, and we shrink it. On the other hand, we battle against bureaucracy, corruption, all these things that are not alien to anyone, but in Greece somehow it was much more pronounced. So we took very bold steps to reform the economy, make it more appealing to foreign investors. And as I told you before, because of the internal devaluation, right now we acquired, our competitiveness, and we are ready to receive foreign investments. The first good signs are already there, because foreigners, they see in a reformed economy with the guarantee of the euro, because that dilemma, which you referred to before, in or out of euro, has been dealt with the decision of the European Council. Greece is connected to euro, and euro is connected to Greece. So the potential investors, they have a guarantee that they belong to the strongest currency, one of the strongest currencies, let me say, in the world, and at the same time, they have a reformed situation back in Greece.
But, looking back on the last, say, 2 or 3 years, was there ever a point where leaving the Eurozone was thought to be a realistic option for Greece? Did the Greeks think it would be better if we were out of this?
I think that the majority of the Greek people, they like all the way, to belong to the Eurozone. That's my impression. In other words, the main political forces, they express their position that they prefer this to be in Euro. Of course, in an open society, in a democracy, there are other opinions, but I believe that the majority opts for Euro. The question is how we're going to stay there, the kind of reform we're going to take, and also this very well debated solidarity from European partners. When a partner is in a need and expresses the will to reform, the rest of the partners should come and help this specific country. And that has been done to a great extent in the past.
Do you have a sense, as some people have said, that there is sort of a cultural divide within the European Union between the North, which has a perhaps much stricter work ethic, and the South, which is sort of much more relaxed by its very nature? Does this thinking actually exist, or is it something that's brought up by commentators?
I can bring you statistics that they prove that Southerners, specifically Greeks, they work more than our northern partners. I don't like to refer to specific countries. This is a matter of fact. I can give you the statistics. The question is productivity. We work more, but because Northerners, they work in a more organized environment, they are more productive. So they have, let's say, the upper hand. So the notion that in the South they don't work, I can tell you, has nothing to do with reality. All these very populist things that the strict Northerners, they provide the means for the Southerners to live in a lazy way. They are just as far from reality as you can imagine. I mean, the question and the whole thing of the European Union is convergence. So countries that they are advanced economically, they can provide the means and the programs for others to converge. That's the European vision. That's why mainly we belong to the European Union, to have an integration. I mean, there's a public debate in Europe where we should opt for a federative European Union or not. Those are great public debates in the European Union. I have to tell you that before the crisis, the Greeks, they were solidly behind this convergence of the European Union. Right now, because of the sacrifice I was referring to, this is not the best period to take the poll. I mean, say what you want from Europe and all these things, because you see people that they are very badly hit by all these crises. But still, I believe that the European vision is still alive in Greece, and the majority of people like to belong to this major European family.
So if, assuming, because as you make the point, it's not just Greece that has had these problems and is having these problems. I mean, the current economic climate in Europe generally has not been very helpful, I think, even for the moment. But say in 10 years' time, where do you see the European Union?
Hopefully we're going to overcome the crisis, because let's face it, this is a major, Europe has been through many crises since first we established the European Community, and then eventually transformed to the European Union. So many crises, you can imagine it's like a bike always trying to be in motion, because if you stop, you fall down and you reach your end. Up to now, I've been successful through crisis to another crisis to develop our institutions. But let's face it, this is a major crisis we ever had, economic, social, and political at the same time. Let me tell you that populism is a very big issue in Europe right now. Extremes, the far right, some Nazi phenomena, which were alien totally to my country. You can see some political forces, unfortunately in the parliament right now, that they advocate this kind of far right, even Nazi ideology. So we have to look into this. What we can see 10 years from now, an integrated Europe with a clear economic perspective. The gap you referred to that exists between the North and the South when it comes to income, opportunities, and the investments and the like, to shrink and have a more integrated Europe, a more federative Europe, where, of course, what we call the lack of representation is going to be addressed. In other words, lots of people in Europe right now, they believe that some bureaucrats in Brussels, they decide for them. They are too far away from them. This is not exactly the reality, but the perception sometimes, I mean, is very important. So we have to address all these big issues, and I think that the political leadership has a great task ahead of it.
Just coming around to bilateral relations with the United States, it's been reported that from time to time in the past, during this crisis, the United States was urging Greece not to drop out of the euro and perhaps even to ease up on some of its austerity measures. There's always been this division between how the U.S. approaches the crisis, the economic crisis, and how the Europeans do. Is that true?
It is true in the form that, as I told you before, the United States, wherever I go, from the White House to the representatives in the Congress and the Senate, they express their solidarity with the Greek people, not only because we are two very friendly countries being together since we became independent, I mean, almost the same period, being together during the world wars against totalitarianism, all the way we are together. But because the United States, they see that Greece, even if it's a small player in the global economy, it's a developing country. And if something goes totally wrong in Greece, it's going to have negative repercussions all over. And because we do participate in the Eurogroup, the potential of damage if something goes totally wrong in Greece is much greater for the Western community, let's say, where an anemic recovery can be sensed here and there, but it's not a solid recovery. So they have every interest here from this part of the Atlantic to see Greece successful, being again a normal economic partner, repaying its debt, but developing as well.
What is the current state of the debt?
It's close to 175 in Russia to the GDP right now. But that has been well known from the beginning when this program started. All in all, we feel that if things are going well and we have growth, we'll be able, to put some kind of order. And it sounds very, very bad, but if you see the indicators, you see that we're in a position to fulfill our obligations in the future.
But isn't there another tranche of the support expected fairly soon from either the IMF or the European Bank or both?
Yes, support, if I may put it in another form, those are loans. But they give you the loans provided that they are 100% sure you can repay. So the last, let's say, deliberations between my government and the Troika, IMF, European Bank, and the European Commission took place a few weeks ago, and the report was very positive. So the program is implemented as it was, at the beginning foreseen.
And the Troika, the European Bank, the IMF, and the European Commission are all three still? Do they still have the same kind of? Do they still exert the same kind of influence that they did on Greece, or is that now beginning to ease up?
Well, gradually they're going to end their work there. We're not there yet, but gradually, as the reform program is taking its final shape, and we respond to all this, the roadmap that we agree with them, they're going to eventually depart at some point in the context of the future months. But they're still there, and I have to say that we take advantage of this to reform the economy. At the same time, some of the remarks we judge they are not necessary, so there is sometimes a positive and animated exchange of views.
Hence there is some antagonism in Greece, for example, for the German, for Germany, as such.
It's a
popular kind of reaction.
It is, but it doesn't reflect reality because we are partners. It's true that Germany now is probably the major economic partner in the European Union, and everybody, sees what Berlin is saying before they decide something. In that sense, they play an influential role. But on the other hand, they are our partners. They have every interest for Greece to succeed. The question is which measure we are going to take, because we explained to our German friends in an open democratic society there is a limit that you go back to people to say that you have to pay this and this and this, and if you cross this limit, then everything is going to go down the drain. Nobody has any interest to see Greece failing, because as I told you, all this money they accord to us are loans. So if we lose, they're going to lose eventually.
You have an election coming up soon, as I understand.
For the European Parliament and local elections, yes.
And that will presumably kind of show in the results the impact that...
Institutionally, it doesn't affect the government because we have a parliamentary system.
Sure.
Institutionally does that, but in theory,
in terms of public reaction.
Yes, because it's not a presidential system where you know that no matter what, every 4 years you're going to face elections, no matter what happens in between. In the parliamentary systems, it's almost every day. The governor has to prove that he that they have the majority in the parliament. So in a theoretical level, they might have, if the results are, going to one direction,
Right.
they might create some kind of problem. But institutionally, they don't have any impact.
But the reports actually say that, in fact, the mass protests of some months ago against government measures have now, it seems, petered out.
Yes, you don't see, first of all, my country, that we love to go out and join rallies and demonstrations, even when we had normal economic life. Now the people, they have
Usually late at night.
You said it, yes.
After dinner.
Yes. No, the rallies, they are something which characterize Greece from the ancient times.
Right.
Greeks, they love to go out and demonstrate how they feel. Now they have a specific reason to go out because they see their lives, the unemployment is the ugly phase of the crisis, it's unbelievably high, they lose their jobs, those are not pleasant things. Nobody expects the people to say bravo, all these things, they're very good. But on the other hand, I believe that the Greek people, they do understand that they have to take care of the situation themselves. We don't expect anyone to come from abroad to save us. We have to reform our economy, put some kind of order in our public sector. All these things, they are things we have to take care of ourselves, first of all. And then, of course, we can ask our partners to come and help with loans the way they activate themselves right now. So there are not so many demonstrations, if we put it this way, lately, indeed.
You mentioned the extreme right. Has this crisis produced a new generation of politicians, for example? In other words, has there been a kind of a shift in the personalities sort of governing the country as a result of many of them, being connected with the failures of the past?
This is happening to a great extent, yes, because the crisis brings them upside down.
Right.
People they are mad and they would like to express how feel the anger, for the fall of their standard of living, and this in the political game, it brings lots of changes, no question about this. Now with the extreme right, it's a specific, special phenomenon we have to take care of this, because these people, they have been accused of criminal actions, and the judicial system takes care of this, and it's the only European country that takes action within the constitutional framework 100%, but we took action, and there are deputies with this far-right phenomenon. Deputies from the parliament, they are jailed right now because the judges thought, based on the evidence they had, that their conduct was criminal.
Right, but this emergence of a right wing strength is not exclusive to Greece. I mean, if you look at France, with the French elections quite recently. And yet, it's not the left that seems to have gained politically from this, but the right. What do you make of that?
There are so many factors. I'm going to mention just one. Illegal immigration is creating, in a period of economic crisis and unemployment, which is skyrocketing, a feeling of insecurity.
I see.
So these people, they are not becoming Nazis, of course. There's no way to become Nazis, because Greece was one of the very few countries that suffered and fought against Nazis and fascism. And we paid dearly during the Second World War. But out of anger, they go and join their ranks. And I have to make a distinction. You said right-wing party. It's a different thing. The right-wing party, it's absolutely legal within the constitutional framework. Those people, they are far beyond the extreme right. and they have some elements of Nazis in their ideology. So, true, it happens in other European countries, but in Greece it was manifested to the extreme. And the judicial system found out that these people, they were conducting their business in a criminal way.
Right.
That's why they are in prison right now.
I forgot to ask you when I was bilateral relations. There is an enormous Greek community in this country, with which I presume you were in touch.
Absolutely, we're very proud of the Greek American community. We came here generations ago. They found through hard work their way, and the majority, if not all of them, they never forget the country of where they came from, or their grandfathers, their fathers they came from.
Large organizations like AHEPA, for example.
There are big organizations like AHEPA everywhere, all over the United States. I personally, I was honored to represent my country as Consul General in Boston and in Los Angeles in the past. Everywhere you go, you find the Greek community very proud of their origins, following, organized probably through a Greek Orthodox church, but not only specifically through the church. They are everywhere, and they're active. They come back to us, ready to help. They ask us what we can do about Greece. We're very proud of the Greek American community.
Okay, let's get around to the presidency now that you hold and have held since January, and will hold until June, I believe.
End of
when,
June.
Yes, when the Italians take over.
Absolutely.
What exactly does that entail for A, Athens, and B, yourself and your embassy here?
First of all, I have to tell you, because lots of American friends, they tell us they found you to be the presidents in that situation. Yes. I have to tell you, this is not an option. It's an obligation according to the institution framework of the European Union.
And it's a rotation.
It's a rotating 6-month presidency. And we are determined to be successful. We have behind us 5 very successful European presidencies. So we have the people and the knowledge and the human resources, most of all, to be very successful. From the outset, we set 4 major priorities for this 6-month period. The first one, generally speaking, in a very simplified way, had to do with growth, unemployment, something which does a lot to every European citizen, especially in my country, but it's not only a Greek problem, it's across Europe, as you know. So growth and how we're going to reach sustainable growth is #1 priority. The other one is to battle, I should say, first of all, economic governance. I'll give you an example. Here in the United States, you do have the dollar and, of course, the Federal Reserve Bank, which plays the role more or less of a regulator. In Europe, 18 countries of the European Union, they belong to the Eurogroup. They have a common European currency, the euro, but they're not such a thing as a Federal Reserve Bank. So, in other words, we have to try and build right now new institutions which they meet the needs of today. And the crisis, was very apocalyptic to show that we were not ready institutionally to face such a crisis. So, economic governance is something of a priority. And I have to say that major success up to now of the European Union was the adoption of rules which they lead the way towards the banking integration, the union of banking, the banking union in Europe, which is a very big step forward for us. And we have succeeded to do that. The third priority has to do with illegal immigration, something which tells a lot to our American friends also, because in another form you suffer from illegal migration. In Europe it's much worse, I have to say, especially from the countries of the South, more specifically about my country, because with the situation all around the Southern European and Greek borders, which they are the same, you see that lots of people desperate out of war, civil war, or persecution, they are able to take the most risky ways to reach Europe. And when the economic situation was better, you could say legal immigration, that it's a big priority, we join forces with the United States, but also the rest of our European allies.
And your neighbors particularly. In other words, you're talking about the so-called boat people who come from North Africa, the North African coast, having come up sometimes from Horn of Africa and tracked all the way across to the Mediterranean and got themselves into highly risky boats which sometimes sink halfway through.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And they produce human tragedies. But I have to tell you something, they don't come only from Northern Africa. Most of them, they end up in my country, they come from our neighbor in Turkey. And there are some a system there that takes them. People are coming from as far as Afghanistan, Pakistan. They find their way to Turkey.
So this is overland immigration as opposed to the coastal.
When we take measures to at the land border, they find their way through the islands. And you know, you have a large boat, let's say for 40 people, they pack there 300 people. Always they find someone, I mean, kids and women, so you cannot refuse in any way to receive them. It's a systematic, circuit that they go through. These desperate people, they pay big money for their own, standards, and it's something we have to join forces to do with this.
And you put them in refugee camps.
But the country obviously cannot cope with this. Suffice to tell you that in the past, every single day, about 2,000 people, they ended up at the Greek borders. It's like a big village in Greece.
Yeah.
Every day injected, we are a small country, we cannot afford it anymore, especially when you couple this with the economic crisis and an unemployment 27%. The end result politically is this huge, overinflation of extreme right group people that they say we're going to defend you.
Yes, because this immigration, this illegal immigration is one of the issues that the extreme right is...
Absolutely, because most of these people, they cannot find employment. There's no way, because even the Greeks cannot find employment right now. So in order to support themselves, what they're going to try to crime, and this is not good for anyone.
But the idea usually is that they want to go north to Germany and Scandinavia and so on.
But because of geography, they cannot. So our German friends, they might say good words to us. Yes, we understand the problem, but they feel somehow secure because geography, is like a buffer zone. So what's the end result is that all these people, they end up in Greece. There are, I don't know how many, but very many of them, they are going around the Greek cities. And we have to find a solution to this.
And the European community as such doesn't seem to be dealing with this, or hasn't in the past dealt with this as a #1 priority, because it seems to affect some part of the Union and not the other.
In the past, I can tell you, they were, if not negative, quite indifferent. It's your problem, take care of you, just organize yourself. When they've seen the magnitude of the problem, with these boats they were sinking, with 300 people on board, they started saying, oh, we have to do something. But still, that's why we put it as the third priority. It's a pan-European problem. We have to join forces, even people from the very north, that they are less affected. There's no way for someone to cross all this continent to go there. But they have to help us solidify our borders. That's the way we have to react.
As far as your banking priority, isn't there already now a European Central Bank?
It is, but doesn't have the jurisdiction that the Federal Reserve Bank has to intervene, to have a specific program here and there. Their jurisdiction is limited. They're independent, yes, but they don't have nothing close to what you have here with the Federal Reserve Bank.
So the one possibility would be to extend its power.
Yes,
in other words, not to create another institution, but to give more power to the institution.
We can find ways, and the banking union is going to help very much towards this direction. Not to have this nationally different, so much different policies, because the flow of money is free, so it makes no sense, to have Greek, Italian, German, different banking systems, because you can send your money, but you don't have the tools to have a broader policy to
No,
regulate
but
it.
when you say banking union, you mean a set of not international, of European rules that govern all the banks?
If something goes bad in one bank in a specific country, you have the right to intervene and support this. That's an example which everybody can understand, for instance.
I see. And how far has obviously, as you said before, you have 6 months in which to push these priorities so that they can continue to develop.
Oh, we took
How
very
far
bold
you got?
steps, yes. The European Parliament, which is dissolving right now to face new elections, adopted, a series of measures that they are very bold and significant steps toward the banking union in Europe.
What about this embassy in Washington, D.C.? How is the workload affected by the presidency?
We try to promote the message of the European Union being the #1 partner of the United States. I don't know how many people they realize. They see China now as a giant, but if you see the numbers, the European Union is by far your #1 European,
Sure,
investment
yes.
and trade
Fast
partner.
trade.
So we have to pass this message all around, not only here in Washington, through our contacts with the administration, the Congress, the opinion leaders, the mass media, but also spread it all around through our consular offices all around this huge country. Currently, as you might know already, we negotiating this TTIP, as it's called, which is the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Pact, which is going to give even more boost to the one professor friend of ours, Professor Hamilton, told us this is the #1 artery when it comes to trade and investment all over the world.
Right.
So we're going to make it more efficient. That means for the transatlantic trade, hundreds of billions of euros every year more, and tens of thousands of new jobs. It's a huge program, and this pact is under negotiation right now. We're hopeful because from both sides of the Atlantic, we're solidly behind it that within a year or so, we're going to conclude an agreement.
You think so? It seems to me there's still doubts in the Congress about it, and on the European side there's still doubts in the unions.
I believe that there are some groups that they would like to raise some walls when it comes to free
Right.
trade and investment, but all in all the picture is very positive. All my contacts with congressional leaders, they're very positive. I didn't hear not even one saying that I'm against it. Some of them, the minority after
They're asking questions.
they're asking this absolutely normal, and that's why we're here, not only us, but the other institutions from the European Union to take the debate. But I didn't meet anyone who said I'm against this. They raise questions because they might come from a constituency where they prefer to have some kind of protectionism.
Right.
It's understandable, but the whole picture is what I told you, very positive, and the potential is great.
Just one more question about the presidency. The presidency traditionally issues a tie and a scarf. As I understand it, you're not doing the tie and the scarf because it's a symbol of more serious times. Is this true?
You see that this is the result of the austerity measures,
Right.
and I'll be more than happy to offer you the traditional tie, but we said this year, even for these small expenses, we're going to eliminate everything because the country is going through a terrible economic crisis. So I have all goodwill, but no ties this year.
And no scarves for ladies.
No, not this year, really. It was a symbolic thing, but we decided to opt for this just to show how determined and resilient we are to go through this terrible economic crisis.
What is it like to be the Greek ambassador here at a time of such big problems?
Feeling a great responsibility because Greece expects a lot from a great partner like the United States. We have very friendly relations. At this very moment, I'm very blessed because my tenure here coincides with one of the best periods in bilateral relations. As a matter of fact, I don't have any major issue, which is as a problem or a barrier between Washington and Athens right now. We're cooperating the best way.
No Turkey, no Cyprus.
Turkey and Cyprus are right there, but we're cooperating with our American friends, and as a matter of fact, we provide so many facilities in order to implement our common agenda there, which is to provide stability and security in this turbulent part of the world. And I can say how many things we do together that people in the street they don't even realize.
Wouldn't it be a good idea to tell them?
For instance, I can tell you that the United States, they take advantage of our Suda, which is on the island of Crete facility, in a very, very sensitive area of the world right now. Lots of people, they don't know that. So many naval units, they call on Greek ports every day, which makes their operation much easier there. And we implement joint programs.
This is the 6th Fleet.
The 6th Fleet. The other day, I had the honor to receive the new assigned commander of your naval forces for Europe and Africa, Ferguson, who is number 2 now in the Navy, is going to be there, I believe, in June. So, in the defense cooperation is just excellent. But not only that, the President realized that being excellent partners of the countries, the United States should do something more when it comes to the economy. And Secretary Pritzker, Secretary of Commerce, took a trip last November at the suggestion of President Obama and Vice President Biden to see how we can accelerate these changes when it comes to investments, trade, partnership and the like. And we're working on a specific program with the Secretary of Commerce, and she's going to have a follow-up visit, hopefully, sometime in this year. So there's a great potential there, and I have to repeat to you that despite the terrible economic crisis, Greece is a reliable ally in a very turbulent area for the United States.
Have you actually served in this embassy before?
No, I've been as a consul general in Boston and Los Angeles. 3 different cities in the United States, 3 different assignments, but all very exciting.
Mr. Ambassador, thank you very much for this interview.
It's a pleasure.